Respected Uncle Wang, my name is Dakai. I'd like to share with you my understanding of metaphysics. At the same time, I also hope that you, with your broad perspective, like looking at Earth from the moon, can offer some advice for the younger generation, for my future growth. As for my personal background, I'll skip that part. Secondly, regarding my understanding of metaphysics. Ever since I can remember, I've known that my aunt in the family is skilled at fortune telling and divination. When I grew up, I learned that she was actually a spirit medium who practiced incense rituals. In 2016, while I was on a business trip in Hotan, Xinjiang, I received a call from my family. My eldest sister at home said she missed me. Over the phone, she told me a lot of spine-chilling things. Having grown up with a scientific education, I thought it was all nonsense, but deep down, I still had a lot of respect for my sister. Since 2016, I've also been exploring and gradually learning about this field. There are two types of people who can tell fortunes: the spirit-guided type and the theoretical type. The theoretical type is also called the deduction type. This is his own summary, just as I'm saying now. So, as for me, I mentioned something similar in the second session of the Baidao Club about the spirit-guided type. The spirit-guided type includes spirit descent, or spirit possession. First are those naturally able to channel spirits. For them, at ages like 8 or 9, or even 18 or 19, this ability emerges. Suddenly, for some people, it happens after they have a child. One day out of nowhere, the spirit just comes to them. But this process requires some guidance procedures. Certain so-called elders need to come and help guide and settle the spirit. If this process of settling the spirit doesn't happen, the result is madness, speaking nonsense, wandering aimlessly in the streets, disheveled and dirty. There are many such people. Well, it's not that they're truly insane, but rather that during the process of spirit descent, they didn't have an expert to help settle their spirit. What he said is absolutely right. Have you all seen a movie starring Wang Baoqiang called Mr. Tree? Hey, Mr. Tree. The way Mr. Tree smokes like that, he's just a natural. He reached that critical point. After going through several shocks because no one helped him settle his spirit, he became a bit crazy and erratic. If there's no master to guide them, that's the second situation. The first is being born this way, naturally becoming a qi, or gaining the ability to become invisible. The second is the top tier type, also known as the added power of Chu Ma. This is usually passed down in the family. The family already worships a household guardian spirit, so in such families, especially among the weak and sensitive women, they are the most likely to be chosen. These multidimensional animals that possess people are usually foxes, weasels, or sometimes, well, they generally won't call themselves weasels. Usually, they'll refer to themselves as Neja, the third prince. The third type is called those with a mouth but no words. These are people who are born with a sensitive constitution. They can sense things themselves, but can't express it or explain why. Their sixth sense is just very sharp. The first category is spirit invoking, and the second is theoretical. These represent external spirits versus self-cultivation. One relies on outside forces, the other on oneself. The theoretical school is also called the deduction school, and it is divided into two types. One type consists of those who read books, or you could call them diviners. There are quite a lot of them. Some pretend to be mystical, but among them, there are also those who, through their own acquired wisdom, are self-taught and become accomplished on their own. The second type includes various religious practitioners in Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism, as well as so-called monks and priests in Catholicism. They rely on the patterns summarized from the big data of their respective religions. And this so-called divine pain can also occur. These are all part of the theoretical school. They don't follow strict precepts or external rituals. So what is the second type of medium? The spirit-invoking school generally uses things like incense, white liquor, cigarettes, or burning yellow paper, basically ritual papers and talismans as mediums. Even things like our cigarettes and white liquor can serve as mediums. Through these kinds of objects as mediums, to channel the spirit into the medium's body. Then, through the person who is possessed, the so-called spirit medium, the spirit speaks through their mouth. So what about these people? The characteristic of these people is that it consumes a lot of their vital energy. How do they make up for the loss of their vitality and health? Well, it varies from person to person. Some people need to eat good food, like chicken, for example. Some people need to smoke while others recite scriptures. In any case, it all takes a significant toll on the health of their family members. For example, my aunt, her relationships with her relatives were all troubled. Her marriage at home was also unhappy, and her child was disabled. From my observations, I found that most spirit mediums are in rural areas, with very few in the cities, and most of them are women. So when someone tells me, did you ever encounter some real expert? I usually ask, does this person have any education? Did they go to college? With just this one question, you can tell if it's the first situation. In the second case, if the answer is no, they can't even recognize a single character, but everyone in the surrounding villages knows they're amazing and people line up at their house. Then you ask, do they smoke or drink? Do they burp because they're possessed by animal spirits, or do they act as mediums for inviting spirits to possess them? If so, then without a doubt, that's the first type. But if the answer is no, they went to college. Say they graduated from Harbin Institute of Technology back in the 1980s, and then by chance, they went to Mount Juhua and became a monk. Then that's a different situation. This kind is the theoretical type, and in fact, these people are more likely to be real experts. They're on a higher level than those with animal spirits, but maybe their abilities are less mystical than those of animal spirits, so it's not as big of a deal. However, because they're still in this basic dimension and haven't leapt into the higher dimension of animal spirits, the so-called theoretical type, as the name suggests, relies on things like books, divination sticks, coins, or even straws. Dice, playing cards, tarot cards, they use these kinds of tools. Dowsing rods and similar mediums are used to deduce patterns and conduct big data analysis. Generally speaking, these people don't have any of those strange things attached to them. If they do, it's usually from a competitor and it won't directly affect them. Alright, let me see. Then he talks about his own experience. When I went south to start a business during the toughest time last year, I didn't have any money on me, and I was relying on faith to keep going. Then one day I had a dream. I got a fever, my whole body ached, I was in pain all over. I could sense that it wasn't a real fever, not the kind that ordinary people would think of. So I hurried to a local temple to kowtow and pray. After struggling like this for nearly half a month, one day, I suddenly became someone who had words but couldn't speak them, just like what he summarized earlier. I could foresee how things would unfold, but I couldn't say it out loud, and I didn't know why. My business partner was quite surprised by all of my decisions. However, as it turned out, my decisions were always proven to be correct, and the business was finally brought back to life because of this. Right now, I'm still working on the Hetian Jade project. Of course, I also have a small business on Douyin, but I won't go into that here. Since March of this year, I've been able to earn about 100,000 RMB a month, which is more than enough to support my family, and I have no debt. Ah, congratulations, Dakai. A person with a mouth but no words. Honestly, this is something I used to overlook. I really didn't know about a person with a mouth but no words. This is something he summed up himself. A person with a mouth but no words. Alright, it seems this trait has been very good for you. Alright, let's continue. Just now, Dakai summarized the Chu Ma Xian. Why does it bring wind or death? Why is it that Chu Ma Xian usually ends in a tragic fate? If you want to argue, you might say, that's not true, LaoWang. In our village, the Chu Ma Xian lived to be over 80, and their family is doing very well. 3 generations have been doing this. Well, that's an exception. That's an exception. Most Chu Ma Xian don't have it so good. LaoWang, hello, I'm the one who wrote to you about the story in front of the temple, that netizen from Beijing. I saw you were collecting stories about metaphysics online, so I decided to write down my real experiences and submit them to you. I hope you'll accept my submission. About the advance payment, everyone remembers, right? It's about her husband dreaming that one of his own classmates from Tsinghua, a top student, had died. Then, in the dream, he saw this classmate dressed in a suit, working as an underworld messenger abroad. He asked, "Why are you so busy?" He said, "Oh, hey, I need money. So, how can I help you? You can burn some electric money for me." That is the kind of money used in electric memorial offerings. In Beijing, there are many Northeast Chu Ma Xian shamans, and it just so happens that I know one of them and am familiar with his background. He's just over 40 now, with kind eyes and a gentle smile, looking very much like a statue of Guanyin. When people come to him for a reading, he'll light an incense stick in the censer, ask for the visitor's birthday and what they want to know, and then start calculating by counting on his fingers. He doesn't analyze things using the traditional 8 characters method. From what I've observed, he does ask for some information like a photo, name, and birthday. Then he used this information as a pivot point. Through the incense, he transmits it to another dimension to directly obtain the answers to these questions. When he was in good condition a few years ago, I could just say a person's name or show him a photo for a moment. He could immediately describe this person's real situation and the side of them that is hidden from us or unknown to most people. He could even evaluate this person from a third-person perspective, and his descriptions were extremely accurate. During those years, his incense business was thriving in Beijing, and many people sought him out for readings. He was a very down-to-earth person. When he was in a good mood, you could invite him out for a meal with friends, eating and drinking together, no problem at all. He had a great temper and was very easygoing. I remember around 2021, I was having trouble at work and dealing with some difficult people, so I went to him to see what I could do about it. At that time, he was in a pretty negative state. He told me that I was naturally prone to running into troublemakers, that it was just fate, and that if it wasn't too serious, I just had to endure it. He even tried to comfort me, saying that after seeing so many people, he thought I was actually one of the luckiest. He said that in my life, the major things, my family background, marriage, and children, would all go smoothly, without any real hardships. The only thing was that I might not become extremely rich or powerful. He said that these minor setbacks at work weren't even worth worrying about. This already counted as being quite fortunate. As he kept talking, because the shaman's own state wasn't good, and he was in a bad mood, the conversation gradually shifted to himself. I could sense that something was off with him at that moment. So, what was wrong with his state? He said he was abandoned by his birth mother and raised by his adoptive mother. This shaman in her 40s is a woman who was an abandoned child brought up by her adoptive mother. In the Northeast, his adoptive mother was also a shaman. When he was still very young, he saw his adoptive mother acting crazy and erratic. Maiji Stories, thank you, and I wish you great fortune. So he knew when he grew up that he couldn't become a shaman because his adoptive mother, who was a shaman, went crazy. She lost her mind. But on the very day she gave birth, she said that while she was in labor on the delivery bed, pushing with all her strength, he heard a clear voice lingering by his bedside. This voice was telling him the fate of his entire life, when he would start practicing as a shaman, which year he would begin, how far he would go, how much money he would make, which year he would go bankrupt, when his family would fall apart, which year he would prosper, and which year he would die. I asked him, did these things actually happen later? Did they happen according to your fate chart? He said, pretty much everything matched up. The year his son was born, after his son was born, he really did gain the ability to see things. And right after that, his adoptive mother went half mad. It seemed that the fox spirit that had possessed his mother or adoptive mother transferred to him. When he first started practicing as a shaman and reading fortunes, he was extremely accurate, and he quickly became famous in his hometown. At the peak of his popularity, people had to take a number and wait in a long line to see him for a reading. He was really as popular as a top doctor in a big hospital. Even local loan sharks would seek him out. Whether they should lend money or if they could get it back, they would all ask him. In his hometown, he became a household name, a local celebrity. His sudden fame brought him considerable benefits, and since he was only in his 20s at the time, still young, he completely ignored the warnings given on the day his child was born when the birth chart was read. He really thought that this so-called ability was his own, not realizing the bad consequences. He began to indulge in this kind of empty vanity. When he was in his 20s, his pride and arrogance were sky high, until one day. Suddenly, all his wealth and prosperity came to an abrupt end. He had an incredibly vivid dream. A huge, fierce snake lunged at him in the dream, threatening that within 3 days his family would be ruined and destroyed. The dream startled him awake in terror. He hurried to find his adoptive mother, only to discover that the old lady had also had this strange dream. She dreamed that she too had a strange dream. She dreamed that he fell into a cesspit which made his heart sink. He did some quick calculations and recalled that this year was exactly the year he had that nightmare. This very day was the day, according to the prophecy, when he would have a child. The same year the prophecy said he would go bankrupt and his family would fall apart. But reality was even harsher than the dream. Within 3 days, he truly suffered a great calamity because up until then, he had always been very fortunate. He was loyal and always prided himself on his judgment, never making a mistake, so he was extremely confident. He worked in the private guarantor business. He acted as a guarantor for others because he believed his judgment was always right. But this time, he didn't expect that the sum involved was enormous. It was a huge loan. The borrower took the money and ran, and since he was the guarantor, he had completely misjudged the situation, and this one mistake was something he couldn't afford to pay for. His life collapsed in an instant, and debt collectors came knocking at his door. They showed no mercy at all, spreading rumors everywhere about how even a shaman couldn't predict his own misfortune. Very quickly, in this small hometown, the whole town was abuzz, and the ugliness of human nature was laid bare at that moment. Her husband dragged her by the hair to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a divorce. Her own son disowned her, and she was kicked out of her home. You have to know, she used to be the undisputed head of the household. Former friends all avoided her, and the gossip from others felt like slaps across her face. She used to be such a proud and arrogant person. The sudden disaster was more than she could bear. She started trying to end her life, drinking pesticide, crashing cars, slitting her wrists, jumping into the river. She tried it all, but just couldn't die. Since she couldn't die, what else could she do? At that time, the only one left by her side was her mentally unstable adoptive mother. It was his adoptive mother who told him, "You should go. The farther you get from home, the better." So he took the only 1,000 yuan he had left and came to Beijing, staying at a home-in hotel. He thought to himself, whenever I spend the last of this money, that's when I'll end my life here in Beijing. That very night, while staying at the home-in, he dreamed of that giant snake again. The giant snake said to him, "Don't misunderstand. I have no grudge against you. The reason I've been tormenting you is because of the fox spirit attached to you. Before things were cleared up between the two of us, that fox once hurt me. So, after searching for so many years, I finally found it. Now through you, I've tracked it down and killed it. My great vengeance as a giant snake has now been fulfilled. Earlier, I said that within 3 days your family would be ruined and you would lose everything. I wronged you. Now, over these past few years, I want to make it all up to you, so you don't need to seek death anymore." On the very next day after having this dream, he ran into an old acquaintance at the hotel, someone from his hometown who had once helped him with spiritual matters. After meeting this person in the hotel, he casually read their fortune. And with that, it was as if he truly came back to life in Beijing. Every time he did a reading in Beijing, he charged 1,000 RMB per session, averaging one person every 20 minutes. At his peak, there were long lines waiting for him. That's how his days slowly passed. Every time he made money, he sent it back to his hometown again and again, gradually paying off the debts he owed. Because he was the guarantor, he really was truly a stand-up guy. The day he told me about his background, he said, "The debt is almost paid off now. A huge sum is nearly settled." But his fate chart said otherwise. The year he was destined to go mad was also approaching. In other words, the year after the one when we were talking, that would be the second year. He would go mad, and in the third year he would die. So next year he'd go mad, and the year after that he'd die. His state at the time wasn't good, and it was because of this. He was very anxious. The girl who wrote me the letter had gone to see him for a reading, saying she was having trouble with petty people, and it just so happened to be during this period for him. So he was feeling anxious and really wasn't in the mood to do a reading for her. Lately, even with us so-called familiar devotees, they'd ask if his readings were still accurate. He started asking if there were any other truly skilled spirit mediums or shamans in Beijing who could do readings for him because he couldn't get accurate readings for himself. He said, "I can't help myself. Why can't you read for yourself?" He said, "The spirit I carry on me doesn't allow me to read for myself, so only someone in the same profession can read for me." So he was completely in a state of utter confusion and helplessness. That day, when I heard about his troubles, I felt that my own issues with so-called petty people were nothing in comparison. I just gave him the money, handed him a red envelope, said "thank you," and left. But the things he said kept lingering in my mind. So moving on to the following year, which was the year he was supposed to be sealed according to his fate chart. That year, I tried to meet with him several times. Either he didn't have time or he canceled at the last minute. It took 3 or 4 months before we finally managed to meet once. When we met, I asked him, "How have you been lately? Everything okay?" He said, "My health has gotten worse. I can't sleep through the night, not a single night. I feel like there's always something disturbing my body." He described it to me as if he was acting crazy, like those people who perform spirit dances. When he was dancing, he actually felt better. The more he tried to control himself and live like a normal person, eating, sleeping, going about daily life, the more uncomfortable and agitated he felt. Only when he started jumping around and acting crazy did he immediately feel his whole body relax and at ease. That's just how it was. Oh, and this time, he also tried to read my fortune, but he couldn't get anything right at all. Everything he said was the exact opposite of the truth. Yeah, he just couldn't read anything accurately anymore. He'd lost his ability. I didn't hold it against him or call him out on it because I understood how miserable his situation was. So I paid him, thanked him, and then we parted ways. At that point, I asked him about our mutual friend. Everyone was in the same situation as me. No one could get in touch with him. He was in a semi-crazed state, and time passed quickly. The following year was the one the fortune book said he would die. As summer approached that year, I actually managed to get a hold of him on my first try. I asked him to take a look at my project for me. Honestly, I didn't really care if his reading was accurate or not. I just wanted to see how he was doing. When I saw him again that time, I felt like his complexion and overall state were much better than last year. Honestly, he seemed just fine to me. But I was also afraid he might be sensitive about it, like he'd be superstitious if I said he was dying, so I avoided the topic. We just chatted casually about random things, then I left. Later that same autumn, another friend who knew him told me what had really happened. He said that year, the year he was supposed to die, his adoptive mother back in his hometown, the one who was half crazy, jumped into the river and killed herself. After she jumped into the river and killed herself, this Chu Ma Xian in Beijing hurried back to his hometown and hired a lot of people to recover his adoptive mother's body. Because he was very close to his adoptive mother, he believed in his heart that she jumped into the river to trade her life for his, a life for a life. In this world, his adoptive mother was the person who loved him the most. Hearing this outcome, I truly felt both sorrow and relief. Sorrow because his adoptive mother died so tragically, and relief because it turns out that this life for a life exchange really worked. He truly survived what should have been a fatal fate, and from then on, that destiny was broken. But then, a new wave of sadness arose. Such a miserable person, he no longer had any spirits or deities by his side. He had no immortals either. In his lonely days, there was no one he loved by his side, and he had to continue living in Beijing like this. Thank you HTT from Beijing for your wonderful story. This also tells us that if you don't have the ability, you shouldn't get involved with spirit mediums or immortals. You really need to improve yourself, otherwise, fate. Foolishness. It's all predestined. Alright, it's fine. Don't go seeking fortune-telling if nothing's wrong. It's better to keep a respectful distance from these mysterious forces. All forms of fortune-telling, whether it's spirit-invoking or theoretical deduction, to be honest with you all, there's always something around them. Got it. But Old Wang, what about you? Are you one of those people too? Aren't I one of them as well? Everyone's different. It's just a matter of whether you control it or it controls you. Do you understand? No one is exempt. Even Xiao Yong had it. Takashima Tun-san had it too. All of them did. This is what we call the law of the universe, because once you reach that level, you are actually half human, half god. Gods are spirits, and spirits are gods. If you have an official position, you're called a god. If you don't, you're called a ghost. Do you understand? So when you reach that half human, half god state, how could you not encounter them? That's why your mindset, your mental maturity, you need to have a clear sense of yourself. If you can't handle anything, if you can't even deal with people, if you can't even handle bad people, and you still want to meet evil spirits, then you're either crazy or something else. So you must have a strong enough mind to take that step into the practical cultivation of metaphysics. Otherwise, just focus on cultivating yourself. Don't go around doing divinations for no reason.